Hello humans, it's not Martine, it's just Cheyenne, and welcome to today's installment of 12 more TBRs of Christmas. If you haven't seen any of these other videos, I've joined in with a bunch of my friends to celebrate another booktube friend, Martine from Just Martine. Martine is one of my favorite booktubers. They do really fun challenges, and I've gotten so many inspiration ideas for videos that I want to do on my channel from them. And one of the biggest things that they do every year is throughout the year, they work on reading different TBRs. So one year, one of the days was reading all books with secret in the title. And they read like 3 or 4 books that had secret in the title, the word secret. Or they come up with like these crazy challenges and they read books to fit the challenge, and then they post them starting on Christmas for the next 12 days. And we decided as a group, I was not the official planner of it, but I was asked to join. We decided to carry on with 12 more TBRs that we are creating to celebrate Martine. So last year in 2024's 12 TBRs, Martine did a video where they played connections and then they chose books based on the different categories for connections. So I decided to do a little tweak of that and play Wordle in order to choose my books. So I did 5 days of Wordle, and I had to use the word for Wordle after I solved it. I had to use that word to help me pick a book. I didn't have to necessarily use the word itself, but the word had to inspire the book choice because they were weirdly specific words sometimes, which you'll find out later. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into this installment of 12 more TBRs of Christmas. Okay, I like to give myself a word that has some vowels and some common letters and just kind of start with that one. Okay, we got an O. So I'm going to switch now and see some of the other vowels and try to get some more consonants in there. Okay, O and an E to start. I'm going to go with this one. Wow, I am shocked I got that on camera. Okay, so whole will be our first word. So I'm settled on a book for word number 1, which was whole, and I struggled with this one because I couldn't find like whole in the title of any of the books that I owned, and so I was like, okay, well, what about, like, how can I relate the word whole to a book? And I was kind of thinking about it, and I was like, well, what if I read a standalone? Because the standalone has, like, the complete story. It has the whole story in one volume. And so I decided to do that. So I have been reading The Ministry for the Future by Kim Stanley Robinson. Kim Stanley Robinson is an author I've wanted to read from for a long time. I've been a little intimidated by his books because they're kind of hardcore science fiction. He's a very smart man, and I was worried that I wouldn't be able to follow along with his books and kind of keep track of everything, but so far, this has been going great. I am about 80 pages. Sorry if you can see the fluff from the inside of my bag on it. I'm about 80 pages through, and this has been flying. Like, the chapters are really short, which is fabulous, because last night when I was sitting down to read, I kept being like, okay, I'll read one more chapter and then I'll go brush my teeth. And then it'd be like, ooh, this chapter's only 3 pages. I could read another chapter before I go brush my teeth. So, like, that really helps. This is basically about climate change. And Kim Stanley Robinson is some kind of scientist, I believe. He works for the Sierra Nevada Research Institute, and he definitely knows a lot about the climate. So the first chapter of this was borderline traumatizing. It was really intense. It's about a heat wave in India where basically the temperatures rise so much that it doesn't cool down at night, and everything starts heating up to where the ACs go out, and people are literally being cooked by the heat wave because it's so hot that even the water that you would like try to cool yourself down with is like hotter than your body temperature. So literally the world turns into an oven and is basically cooking people. And it was one of the scariest first chapters I've ever read. Like, it was so hard to read and just very scary to think about that ever happening, and hopefully it never does. And then it kind of goes on from there. That heat wave is kind of where people are suddenly like, something might need to change. Like, we gotta figure out this problem. And so there's a ministry for the future that's created, which is basically a group of people who are dedicated to trying to save the world for the future. It's kind of like, we can't continue on as we are. We need to make some changes to help save the world. This book has a very interesting writing style. So we're following one character from the opening chapter in various chapters. And then there are other chapters that just kind of bounce around to like random viewpoints, random meetings from the Ministry of the Future, happenings that are happening kind of around the world related to the climate crisis. And so it just has this almost mixed media feel, even though everything is just written like text. I feel like Kim Stanley Robinson is just playing around a lot with like structure of chapters to like make it feel like you're getting all these snapshots, and then you also have like a couple viewpoints that you're following. We're following people from the Ministry for the Future, as well as a doctor from that first chapter. So it's just really good. I'm so glad that I'm liking this, because I have like 4 of his books on my shelves that I've kind of collected over time. So I'm really glad I'm liking this. I hope I continue to love it all the way through. And I just think this is going to be such an interesting read to like talk about when I'm done with it. This is kind of heavy science, but I think he's doing an okay job at like explaining it as we go along, like giving me just enough for me to be like, okay, I basically understand what that means, even if I don't get everything. And so this definitely like isn't as like complicated sci-fi as I thought it was going to be. He's doing a good job of like bringing me into the science rather than just like showing me how much science he knows, if that makes sense. So I'm really enjoying this. I'm getting ready to go into work, and I'll definitely be reading this for a while, and I'll kind of come back and update you when I have some more thoughts to share. Okay, I'm back with an update because I have finished The Ministry for the Future. It's actually been finished for a while. I just haven't had some time to update. I enjoyed this book, but I will say I felt like it was a little long. So the beginning of this, like maybe the beginning third, was probably my favorite part. And then this last part drug a little bit for me. Now, I would still say that this was like a 3.5, 4-star book overall. But I think that the things that it focused on in the latter half got a little bit repetitive over time, and just there was a hard time clinging to a plot to kind of keep me moving through the book. This is a very slow-paced book after the first couple of sections. It felt like things were moving extremely slowly. We are basically watching the ministry and the people in it, mainly the person leading it, as they try to make change in the world to stop the global warming crisis. And we still get filtered throughout all the book. We get all these different little sections talking about ideas for how to stop climate change, things that smaller groups are doing, science that's telling us more about this. Like, this feels like a very experimental book, and I enjoyed it, but we didn't have a strong plot. That plot with the Ministry for the Future felt very slow, especially because it was already a slow plot. I mean, someone pushing for political change through economics, money, and stuff like that feels very slow. And then when you're adding in these other sections of things happening in between, it just really brings down the pace so much that it was almost hard to finish. When I got to the end, I was just really tired of like the plot going so slowly. So I don't know, the ideas for this are so good and I really enjoyed them, but the execution itself felt a little lacking for me. It just felt like it was a little too long. I feel like the plot could have been a little plottier. I think I would have appreciated that, but I like the sentiment and the ideas in here. And sometimes I would read one of those little sections and it would be like one of my favorite things in the entire book. So I'm kind of conflicted on what to rate it because some parts of it I didn't like and some parts of it I loved. So that's why I kind of landed on like a 3.5 or 4 stars. But I am glad I got to this because I have a lot of his books on my shelves, and this makes me want to get to those to see if they have more of a plot focus than maybe this one had.
Day 2. Woo! Starting off strong. Let's see. Actually, let's try to get some consonants in here. Okay, this is interesting. No other vowels. So we know that's going to be our start. There could be an E actually. Tricky. Okay, I think I'm going to try to get some more consonants and then hope for the best for the last one. Otherwise, I'm not going to get it. Oh. Interesting. What a tricky one. Okay, word number 2 is savvy. That'll be an interesting one to find.
Okay, so word number 2 was savvy. And this one, I was immediately thinking, like, I want to find someone who's, like, good at their job. Like, savvy in, like, what they do for a living or what they're doing in this story. I want them to be, like, good at it. So after reading some descriptions of books, I landed on Black Sun Rising by C.S. Friedman. The reason I picked this one is because it's about a group of people who are having to work together to do a job, and everyone kind of has their own unique abilities. So this is following a priest, an adept, an apprentice, and a sorcerer. This book is a 90s fantasy. I think this was written in 91. Well, it's not just a fantasy, it's a sci fantasy because this is set in a far future world where humans have abandoned Earth looking for other planets to live on. And they come across this place called Erna that they want to live on. When they land there and start like colonizing it, however, they learn that there is magical source in the planet called the Fae, and it's sort of released from the planet's core whenever there are earthquakes, and there are lots of seismic activity on this planet. And the plot kind of goes on from there. I really like the idea of the magic system of like the earthquakes and the Fae, but I will say this has a very like classic fantasy feel of a magic system that's described in a very vague manner, to where it was a little hard to understand what was happening when people were using the magic. The magic was explained a little bit, so I could like kind of keep up with some of it, but then there were other times where I'm like, I don't really know, like, is this good? Is it bad? Who's powerful? Who's not? Just because the magic system is very vague and it's not explained in a concrete way, and a lot of the things that would come up would kind of come up as they're happening, and so we're getting a little tiny explanation, and so we're like, okay, I think this is a big deal, but I'm not sure. I think what really shined for me in this book was the characters, and a little bit of the plot. Again, just like the Ministry for the Future, the first third of this book was by far the best part of the book. I was really hooked in the beginning and I flew through the first third. And after that, it got a little slow. So we kind of meet our characters, one of whom I can't really tell you about because that might be a spoiler. But we have our priest character who I don't even know who this is on the cover. I don't know if this is the priest, but it might be, or it might be someone else. But we follow a priest who is trying to help someone. I really can't say much. It's so weird. There's a lot that happens at the beginning that I feel like would be spoilers if I said it. So he's trying to help someone, and there's like a group of people that are along with him trying to help someone in this book. And things they set off on a quest to do what needs to be done, and there's a villain in here, kind of an epic showdown, and then the story continues. This is the first in a trilogy, so we got to an end point, but the story is not over. I feel like it's a decent stopping point if you just wanted to read one book, though I have heard that maybe this is the weakest of the three. I definitely want to continue, but it still has a little bit of those things that I'm finding I don't like as much in older fantasy. C.S. Friedman is a female author, but this does struggle with writing its female characters in a great way. One of the female characters that we follow is supposed to be maybe really powerful, but is like sidelined for the entire story for plot reasons. And I felt that to be really frustrating. Like, she kind of was just made a damsel in distress for a lot of it, which was annoying because I'm like, I think she's a really cool character, but you're not letting her be a cool character. So I hope things are different in following books from that point of view. There's also like a lot to be said about colonialism with like the humans who have left Earth and are colonizing Erna. There's creatures there that are humanoid-like and have intelligence, and the humans kind of treat them like animals, and that's not really discussed in a way where, like, it's kind of looked down upon, but they're not discussing colonialism. I definitely feel like there is maybe some subtle racism going on. Like, I don't know. But there were just some things with native creatures that were here before where it's like they're treating them like animals, but I'm like, they're intelligent. But then also the main characters were like, well, they're much closer to being like animals than we are, so they're like held back by their like animal instincts and stuff. And I was like, that just feels a little icky, and it didn't feel like it was being challenged in the story. We just kind of brush past these things, and I'm like, oh, that feels weird to read about. And then there was some stuff at the end with a character who I can't tell you about, but there was some really icky stuff in the epilogue or the last chapter that I was like, that's gross. I don't like that. So yeah, kind of mixed thoughts on this. I ended on a 3.5. I think it's good. I think it's something where if it were written now with how fantasy has developed, I think this would be much stronger if it was written with like a more modern style of fantasy where we have more developed characters, a more developed magic system. Things would be a little more clearer in that way. So I think this would be a little bit better if it was written now, but I think it was definitely a better 90s fantasy that I've been having luck with so far this year. Definitely better than that, but could use some work still. So I read this for Savvy. Decent. I hope to read more in the series, and hopefully it'll be better and not worse, but we'll find out. I'm reading this in December, so I might try to continue on more in December. I'm not sure yet. But book number 2, done.
All right, day 2 was a little rough. Let's see how day 3 goes. I like to start with a different starting word every time. I know some people like to do the same one every time, but I like to keep things a little different. I'm thinking it's something like this, where the A is at the beginning. I know it can't be alert because we don't have a T, but something like that. So much of actually getting good scores is like staring at it for way too long. I'm going to do alert just to see if I'm on the right track with the A and check the L and the R. Okay, not on track with the A. So then, is it AE? So few things have AE. Maybe the A is at the end. Okay, I'm a little stuck, so I'm going to get some more letters. Okay. So we know it's going to be AEGO. Right? Something AEGO. I have no idea what this will be. Unless it's... Oh, I know what it is. Omega. Interesting. Oh, I can't spell it now. Omega. There we go. Okay. Interesting. I wonder if I have a book with Omega in the title. Interesting.
So the next word was Omega, and I know that the word Omega means last. It's like the Greek alphabet letter that's the last in the alphabet. And so I was thinking about, like, do I look for something with omega in the title? Do I go for the last book in a series? Do I go for the word last in the title? And that's what I ended up doing. Is I saw this on my shelves and thought I needed to get to that. So I read The Last Policeman by Ben H. Winters. This is a very interesting book. So this is set in a pre-apocalypse Earth. This was in Philadelphia. I don't remember the exact town. It doesn't say on the back, but like some eastern United States town. And there is an asteroid that's going to hit the Earth with dire implications, maybe like a world-ending thing, maybe just really bad apocalyptic kind of setting, and it's set to land. And we're following our main character, Hank Palace, and he is a policeman. He was just a patrol policeman, and he, with a bunch of people like quitting their jobs, he's promoted to be a detective. He gets put on the case of a suicide, which is very common in this town. Lots of people are committing suicide because it's the end of the world and they just can't face it. And all the other detectives are like, great, open and shut case, we got it. And Hank thinks something else is going on. So that's kind of what we're dealing with as far as main plot. We basically have this society is falling apart. We have our policeman who's like, I'm going to do my job to the best of my ability. And I don't care if the world ends tomorrow. I'm going to do what I can now. There's a bit of a backdrop of like what other people are doing in this time, like how other people are handling or not handling the fact that the world is going to end in a few months or something like that. And then we're also having this mystery case. This is not going to be super memorable, but I had a good time while reading it. It read very, very quickly. The pacing I thought was decent. And it had a storyline that will continue into the next book because this is a series. It's the first in a trilogy. And I found myself really eager to like get the next books and continue on. There was something maybe intriguing that's going on that we'll find out in the next book. But I just really liked the mystery set in like a pre-apocalyptic world. I thought that was really interesting and fun, and I'm really glad I gave this a chance because I just randomly found it at Powell's one day and decided to try it, and I'm glad I did. I had a good time with it. I think our main character is a little bland. I don't think I feel very strongly for him, but I do appreciate a character who is like trying to do the right thing in difficult situations. That's usually something I jive really well with. So I liked that aspect of his character. It did have some of the negatives of kind of like a noir fiction because this definitely leans a bit in the noir way of things. But I thought he tried to add in like a good female detective who is very capable and kind of a go-getter like Hank himself was, and not have just like a femme fatale who's like the only character that we'll see. So it definitely felt like dark and gritty and very like I'm a detective walking the streets kind of thing, dark and gritty world. But I thought that Ben Winters tried to like modernize it so that we're not like playing to the weaknesses of a noir as much. So I'm excited to continue on. I really liked this book. If you like mystery and science fiction-y pre-apocalypse, if that sounds interesting to you, I think you should check this out because I thought it was competently done. I liked the writing. I enjoyed it overall, and I'm excited to continue on and see kind of what happens, see if we're going to see the apocalypse in the next books, or if we're just going to get, you know, maybe the apocalypse won't happen. I don't know, but yeah, this is good.
All right, I believe today is day 3. Let's solve. Starting off okay. R is tricky to have in the second place because there's a lot of things that can work with it. So I'm just going to try to figure out some more vowels. Ooh, okay. We can definitely work with that. So I want to try an E in here and see if there's an E maybe at the end. Let's try crime. Okay, no E. So could be double L at the end. Like frill. Ooh, fantastic. Okay, frill. Interesting. Okay, I have some ideas of where I could take this for choosing a book. Fun. Okay.
So for day 4's prompt, I decided to read Wildwood Dancing by Juliet Marillier. I decided to pick this one for frill because of the cover. Like, it's the frilliest, most detailed, beautiful cover I've ever seen. I love this artist. She does a lot of Patricia McKillip's covers as well, and she does these really beautiful, like, romantic, warm, just such inviting fantasy books. Like, it's hard to say no to a cover that looks like this for me. So I started this last night. I'm 100 pages into it exactly. 4 chapters, and I'm really having a good time with this. So this is a sort of retelling of the 12 Dancing Princesses. This has 5 sisters. Every full moon, they get access to what they call the other world, where they cross a lake and they go to this like world of fairy and dance and have a great time. And they can only go on full moon nights, and then they go back home. And they do this in secret. Their parents don't know anything about it. And one time when they go, they see what are known as the night people there, kind of hanging on the outskirts. And the Queen of Fairy has invited these people and kind of allowed them to join in on the festivities. And our main character, Jenica, she has a bad feeling about the night people. And that feeling may be justified. Something that was really unexpected in this is that the night people are actually like vampires. Like, that's at least what their lore is mostly, is vampires. And I wasn't expecting that. So that's adding this like fun, almost gothic feel to it. It feels like where we are now, we're in like winter. So with the weather getting cooler and everything right now, I'm reading this in October. With like the weather as it is and stuff, this just feels very fitting. It's not quite as like cozy fantasy as the cover might make you think. And so I'm having a good time. It's definitely like more of a YA book, which I don't always mind. Like, if it's written well and is an interesting story, I don't really care who it was written for. But the writing is pretty big, so it reads really quickly. The chapters are quite long. I mean, about 25 pages per chapter, but I don't mind. The plot is moving really well, and I'm interested to see where it goes, because we just got like quite a big plot point that's like creating a lot of dread for me. I'm very worried about the characters in this book, and this is the first in a duology. Though I have heard from someone who's read all of Juliet Marillier's book that the next book is like really, really terrible. So I may end up reading this as a standalone or trying the second book and just seeing if it's okay. But I don't know. I started this because it is the first in a series that I was planning on reading, but I don't know. We'll find out about the second book. But yeah, this is what I'm reading for real. I'll keep you updated when I have more to say, but so far it's a big hit. Okay, I'm back with an update. I finished Wildwood Dancing. This was a very fast read. Like, it reads really easy because it's YA, but like the type is pretty big. And Juliet Marillier has a really engaging writing style in this one. I've read one other book by her, Daughter of the Forest, And there were parts of it that I liked, part of it that I definitely gave a big side eye because I wasn't sure that I liked part of the romance, the start of the romance. If you've read that book, I just don't know how I felt about that. But I did like the writing style in that book. I think I ended up giving it a 3. I was also in like a really bad reading slump when I read it, or maybe it put me in a reading slump. I'm not sure. But this is the second book I read. I really liked it. I said this was part of a duology. I read the description for the second book because this book is finished at this point. It didn't need a conclusion, and I've read that the second book feels more like a companion, and I don't know that I liked this enough to want to read more of it. So what I really liked about this is that it brought a few fairy tales together. So we talked about the 12 Dancing Princesses. There was some Transylvanian folklore in like the night people vampire type lore, which I really liked. So we got some of that, and then there were some other fairy tales thrown in that I can't say because it's very spoilery. But overall, I enjoyed this. I think I gave it 4 stars, and I definitely like want to read more Juliet Marillier. I don't think I want to continue in the Seven Waters series, which is the series that I started before, but her other series I definitely want to check out. And she has a Beauty and the Beast retelling that I really want to read. But I have a series of hers on my shelves right here in this corner that I want to read first because I own it, and then get the Beauty and the Beast retelling from the library. So this is 4 stars. Great book. And now we'll be on to the next prompt.
Okay, another day, another Wordle. Let's see. What do I want to try? All right, we got an A somewhere in there. I like found. Found is a solid one to get some of those other less common things. A and O. None of them in the right spot. I'm gonna try them shifted over one. Okay, glown is not a word. You know, sometimes you just gotta go for something that you think is a word and just try it. Let's try blown. I really want to know if the O and the N like need to be over there. Oh, a B is in it. Okay. Fun. I'm thinking like BANO. Oh, I haven't tried a T yet. Banjo. Let me make sure all my letters are in the right spots. Let's try that. Okay, banjo. That's amazing, and we can work with that one. I wonder if I can actually find a book I own or a book to read where like someone plays a banjo. I would love that.
And for day 5, my final Wordle, I got banjo. And I thought it would have been really funny if I actually read a book with the word banjo in the title. But then I had a different idea, and that was to read a Western that's been on my TBR for a while that I really wanted to get to. And that was The Hearts of Horses by Molly Gloss. Molly Gloss is one of my favorite writers. She writes in Western genre, science fiction, and fantasy genres. I've read a Western kind of Bigfoot story from her. I've read like a dystopian fantasy from her before, and this is my first time reading just a Western of hers, and I really enjoyed this. This is a very quiet novel about a woman named Martha who is kind of a horse whisperer. She comes into this small Western town in Oregon. Molly Gloss is from Oregon and writes a lot of books in Oregon. I currently live in Oregon and have for a while, so I always enjoy reading her books and hearing about local places. So this Martha comes into town. It's like 1960s 1918 is when this takes place. So World War I is kind of kicking off overseas. And Martha is really good with horses, and she offers in this town to like tame people's horses so that they can ride them. And she does this with very unusual ways of taming the horses. Instead of like basically beating them half to death and beating them into submission, she uses a lot calmer tactics to help horses not to be scared of what's happening. And the rest of the story is about her taming these horses, kind of commenting on how people treat horses, often in very terrible ways. There's talk about the war and, you know, all the young men being shipped out. There's, you know, talk of the people in this town that Martha gets to know as she's like breaking horses for them, because with a lot of the young men being gone, they are more likely to sort of allow her to do that job because it's not considered a very womanly job. And a lot of people would think a woman can't do this job. And I thought this was a very quiet novel. It kind of reminds me of like a darker, more realistic Anne of Green Gables. Anne of Green Gables has this very like rose-colored glasses tinge over everything because it's viewed from Anne's younger romantic childhood side of things. And this is much more realistic. It can be dark and sad at times, but also very sweet. And I just really loved it. It was a very quiet novel. I read about half of it and then listened to the other half of it. I listened to it on one-time speed just because I didn't want to miss what was going on. And so it was a very like relaxing read, and there were definitely some times I found myself tearing up while listening to the audiobook, which never happens. But there were some sad moments in here, and I just really liked reading about Martha. She was a very interesting character. She felt very confident when she was around horses, but, you know, she wore pants and she wants to be with like the cowboys. She wants to be a cowboy, but she doesn't really belong in their world because everyone sees her as like a woman doing a man's job. And she's very socially awkward. She doesn't know what to do because she feels like she doesn't belong with the women or the men. And so she's this kind of awkward person. And I just really liked following from her point of view. She was a very kind character. I liked her thoughts about like how to train horses in a way that's humane and not like terrible and beating them and stuff. So I really like this. I plan to continue reading more Molly Gloss. I've been working my way through her whole backlist, and this is another like really great one. I don't know if I'd give it 5 stars. I think probably like a 4-star read because I don't know that it's like an all-time favorite book. It's just one I really enjoyed. So that wraps up 12 more TBRs of Christmas, my version. There are going to be a few more after me as we celebrate Martine and all the awesome things they do on their channel, and just having fun collaborating and doing something fun to surprise something else. I hope you enjoyed this video. Subscribe if you want to, and I will try to put links to the other videos if I can in the description so you can check them out. If you haven't checked them out, I will put Martine's channel in the description so you can go follow them because they make really fun videos. You definitely should go check out their channel. And thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.